I get a motion?
I
For
move
approval.
to approve the agenda. Michael?
Thank you, Michael.
Second by Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anybody abstaining? All right. Moving on. Okay, now doing the,
Consent agenda.
all right, can I have a approval for the consent agenda, please?
So move.
I thought the consent.
John Laney?
in
Yes.
Thank you, John.
all the other things.
I second, this is Joycelyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Is there anyone abstaining? All right, thank you. Okay, preliminary business.
Yeah, awards and recognition. I don't think I have anything to report. And then in terms of visitor comments, Teresa, did you have any visitor comments, emails, et cetera, that we need to share?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Okay, and moving on to Quan. Good to see you.
Okay, but, the report for the month. The first page is the tax revenues.
Okay, go ahead and advance to the next page, Cody, please. There you go.
Well, by the end of the month, we have received a total tax revenue about $56.4 million, which is about 3.5% higher than last year's. And the total amount of operating revenue is a little over $51 million, or 94% of the budget. If we look at county by county, Jackson County, we received close to 92% of the budget. Clay County is already over 100% of the budget. And Platte County is a little over 99% of the budget. Also, during the month, we received a letter from Jackson County. Jackson County always send us a letter indicating how much amount being paid, tax amount being paid under protest. For this year, it's only $149,000.
Oh, wow.
A year ago was over $1.1 million.
Wow, so they got there.
Next page,
Got something in order.
for general fund, the expenditure of the general funds, for payroll and benefits, we spent about $19.5 million, 60% of the budget. Library materials is $6.3 million, 55% of the budget. All other operational accounts is about $4.7 million, 46% of the budget. Overall, it's about $30.6 million, 56% of the budget. That total amount is about 10% lower than last year's. Next one is the debt service fund. In the middle, it shows the total amount of interest we have received from Bank of Kansas City for $110,000 since the very beginning. And the total amount of interest from the Texas is about $3.3 million. And we have requested over $59 million in reimbursement, leaving a cash balance about $24.2 million. And at the bottom of that page, it shows the total amount of debt balance, which is about $60.7 million at the end of the month. Next one, the capital project fund. We are working on two projects. The Woodneath Historical Home, we spent about $736,000. And for capital plan, we spent about $18.4 million. Also, in March, we completed the sales of Liberty Branch for $750,000. We have already received a payment from Liberty School District.
The building is No longer ours.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Yeah.
Next one is grant gift fund. Currently, we have about 24 active grants, and we received $164,900 for grant funding, and we spent about $275,000 for those grants. Next one is the health insurance fund. So far this year, we have contribution to the fund for about $2.5 million from both the library and also employees. On the expenditure side, we spent about close to $660,000 for admin fee and other fixed costs. Medical claims, we paid out $1.7 million. And we have a little surplus for about $125,000. Both revenue and expenditures are right on the target of the budget. And the ending fund balance is $1.7 million, which is a little higher than the maximum required for that fund. The last page is a calendar, or the budget calendar for the fiscal year, the new fiscal year. We have just started our budgeting cycle, in March. And April, we will present a personnel budget. In May, we will present a proposed annual budget. In June, for the final budget. And in September, the final tax levy will be set for the new fiscal year. That's my report for the month.
So just staying on that calendar for a second, this is for the newer board members, this is when we gear up a little bit. There's a little bit more committee meeting as we're looking at the various components of the budget. That not only will the committees meet like they often meet, but you'll also be looking at what we're planning on doing in terms of the finances for fiscal 21, 22. And then, of course, bring that all together in June where the Finance and Audit Committee looks at that as a whole. But workload's going to get a little heavier over the next few months as we work through the budget.
That's it?
Yeah, that's
All right, thank you.
the report.
Okay, moving on to committee reports. Building committee is,
Yeah, Brent's on.
hi, Brent.
Hi, Michelle. Welcome, everybody, in the way that we meet these days. We don't have any decisions that we need to make as a board this evening, but we have two new branches, concepts that we want to share with you. And I want to provide a little background for the benefit, frankly, of myself and all the other board members. Why do we keep seeing these building projects coming up? We see these building projects coming up because back in November of 2016, we went to the voters with something called Proposition L, and that was approved by 221,000 voters, or 62.3%. And part of that vote was to sort of make improvements in our buildings, each one of our buildings. And so the dashboard that you sort of see shows each one of these buildings that we were working through. And frankly, we're pretty deep into it. We're probably on project number 21 or 22. The ones we're going to look at tonight, and I will have the staff sort of show you the descriptions. North Oak, I think, is first, and it's followed by Lee Summit. We had a building assessment done by our architects, SAP and Design, and they kind of looked at the facilities. Lee Summit was built in 1990. North Oak was built in 1990, both of these, and they put grades to them. Lee Summit was a C minus. North Oak was a C, and people who've been on the building committee have seen these designs. And what I want to suggest to you is that they're kind of in my category, they get an A or they get an A plus. They're just really sort of gorgeous sort of designs. And there's some dimensions about both of them we want you to understand. We are remodeling Lee Summit, and the proposal is to demolish North Oak and rebuild on that site. The reason why it's important for the board to see these is because we will take these out to bid, and we want to take these out to bid shortly. I think Lee Summit is a little bit further along. and we get back something called the guaranteed maximum price. And this has been a very, very important feature of the building program, because the guaranteed maximum price says if they're going to do something for 4 million and it comes in at 4.2, we don't pay the additional $200,000. We have a guaranteed maximum price, and if it comes in for a lesser amount, we get the benefit of the lower amount.
New copies.
So that's by way of background. I wanted to, share that with you, because you will continue to see building projects coming your way, and you might ask, well, why do we keep doing all these buildings? We're doing these buildings as our social contract with the voters back in 2016 to provide them new library facilities that can serve, frankly, for the next generation, the 20 to 25 years. So I would encourage maybe just turn it over to Steve at this point, and then he could share the two proposals.
Sure, happy to do that. So we'll start off with the proposal for the North Oak and schematic design concept. So if we go to the next slide, please, and next slide. This is the site plan. Oh, back one, please. Thank you. This is the site plan. And so this is actually the same property where the North Oak branch sits today. And so in terms of orientation, if you look on the right, you can see North Oak Traffic Way. You can see that there's a driveway. That driveway is where the driveway is today. If you look on the left, you can see that there's another existing driveway, and that driveway does exist today and goes out on McGee Street. But what we're proposing to do is to take down the building and basically use all of that space that's closest to North Oak Traffic Way as a parking lot. We think that there's benefit to that for two reasons. Setting the building back off the street a little bit, we believe will help visibility. It's a little counterintuitive, but if you think about it, it is kind of true. If the building is right up on the street and you're driving 35, 40 miles an hour, the buildings tend to get up on top of you really fast and you don't see them. So if we move the building to the back of the property, we think it will actually increase visibility. SDA and Helix are actually working on a site study to prove that concept.
Bright sign,
Pardon?
big bright sign.
Well, we're sign two. Yes, we're working on a sign two. The other thing that has been a constant problem with this site, based on what its current construction is that we believe that the original building, we didn't do, and by we, I do mean we, Mid-Continent, who was responsible for building that building, didn't do the type of engineering they needed to do on the site, didn't test the soils, and didn't adequately address how water flows through the site. And so the best way to deal with this, if you're going to build back on site, remove the building and address all these things in the correct manner. And so that's what we're doing. There have been a lot of geotech studies. There's nothing physically wrong with the site, like too much shale or anything like that. It just looks like our construction manager in the late 80s, early 90s just didn't, compact the soil enough and didn't do everything they needed to do. But anyway, if you look at the property, you can see there's a building, sort of two rectangles. And what you'll see here in a second is that we're sort of proposing a split level concept for this, which will work extremely well on the contour of the land, but will also create a pretty attractive building. So if we go to the next slide. The next slide are the inspiration designs for what it is we're looking for North Oak. So one of the things that we're keeping in mind with North Oak is McGee Street, if you remember from the previous slide, is actually a residential street. And so part of the issue that we have with McGee being a residential street is that it's houses, it's people's front yard. And our building is sort of a transition between commercial and residential. And so keeping that in mind, we were thinking our design should be a transition between commercial and residential. It shouldn't necessarily feel like a strip mall, but should feel, if you're there on McGee Street, it should feel comfortable to you like another house, but yet also be a commercial or an attractive amenity. And so these were some of the inspirations for the design team. So if we go to the next slide, this is one of the concepts or one of the drawings for how we're going to incorporate that, which kind of gives you a feel. You can kind of see with the pitched roof and with some of the materials that we're using, it gives you it kind of feels a little bit more like a house in some cases, which kind of is sensitive to that transition that I was referring to before. There's lots of glass and natural light on that east side facing North Oak Trafficway, but as you go around the corner, there are less windows and less lighting because we don't want to be lighting up people's bedrooms, with our parking lot lights and things like that. So this is the concept. As you walk in on grade, that's where you'll find the service desk. It's also where you'll find many of the picture books and attractive collections for parents. And then on that upper level that you can kind of see from this is where you find the programming space as well as magazines and reading areas. So if we go to the next slide, this is actually our floor plan concept. And so on the left-hand side, this is grade. So as you sort of go in at ground level. And then on the right-hand side is sort of the stacked 2 levels, and those stack on top of each other, splitting where the grade is. So on that grade level, like I said, service desk, picture books, that's in that blue area with the yellow shelves, that's where the picture books are. The yellow area that's in the upper corner is the staff room, and that's where the drive-up window is. This would have a drive-up window. It has a learning stair concept similar to what we built at Redbridge. That's what you see immediately to the left as you sort of go in the door. Those are a set of learning stairs. And so then if you look at the 2 images on the right-hand side, the one with the large pink box, that's the upstairs. And the pink box is where the programming room is. It's also, there's a little bit of shelving up there, but as I said, there's also space for magazines and people to, sort of gather and read the newspaper and just sort of hang out. And then down below is a lot more stacks and shelving. There are restrooms on all 3 levels as it works out, and an elevator. Of course, we have to have an elevator for ADA purposes. Trying to think what else about, one of the other design concepts, those of you who have worked with me for a while know that I'm not a fan of multiple level libraries in general. And part of that is because of how you have to staff them. They're inherently more expensive to staff. One of the things that we did here is we took great pains to make sure that there were differing types of staffing and that they were spread throughout the library. So you've got the service desk that's on grade, as well as the staff room, which is the yellow that's in that upper, that's on the left-hand side in the upper left-hand corner. If you go to the right-hand boxes, the upper right-hand box with the yellow area, that's another staff room. And the green box that's just above it is the librarian's office. So again, sort of natural that there's going to be people there all the time. And then you go to the other one down below, again, you can see another green and yellow combination, which is a staff combination, staff working area combination. So the idea is that there would be staff sort of organically on all 3 levels, not meaning that we would have to staff all 3 levels with a service desk, which means that it will probably be no more or less expensive to staff than the current North Oak branch in terms of, making sure that all the areas are covered. I think that's all I want to say about where we're working toward right now. We did have, I think Brent mentioned this, we did have our engineers and our architects and J.E. Dunn at the building committee meeting to kind of weigh in on this concept, to help try to talk about concerns that people might have about, the site, the historic issues of the site, and can those actually be adequately addressed? They are assuring us that they can be. And so we are carrying on. This is still very early days. If I were going to guess, I would say we're at the 25% mark. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But we wanted to, staff and the design team wanted to share this with the building committee to make sure that we were heading in the right directions before we started moving beyond that 25%. This concludes what I would want to say about North Oak.
This is Brent Schandelmeyer. 2 quick comments. If we go down this route, this would be the second existing library that we've demolished. You'll see actually the result of Colburn Road a little bit later on here in the meeting. And to me, it's an extraordinary sort of outcome. And if Michelle Wyckoff feels comfortable, I might ask her talk a little bit about this branch, because I think this is her home branch, and we had explored maybe relocating it to another site and decided to stay where we were.
No, I mean, the majority of the time I'm pretty, go with the flow on some stuff. And then there's some things that I take a pretty solid stand on. And this was one of them that I feel like I was taking a pretty strong stand on, because I just think with the makeup of the Northland, I understand all of the construction issues and concerns, and I have full confidence in staff and everybody on the team. But that area is, I've always had an issue, even when we were looking a little bit farther south, with moving that branch because of the demographics of that area. And I'm happy with the design concept. I'm happy with all of it. And this one makes me really, really happy, because I did not want to move this site. So, and Noelle, is Noelle on here?
Noel's on.
Okay.
I'm on, and
mean-
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, I just don't see that area is going to be anything. You've got a lot of elderly, and you've got, some lower income. It's very starter homes. You also have a daycare literally that's right next door. I just think we are a very good partner in that community and in that spot. I just don't know where else we would put it and have the same effect. There's a lot of people from that west side especially that can really safely walk to us. And there's a lot of homes back there. So anyway, that we're kind of in the back. Those people are kind of in the back door, like Steve is at Redbridge. So, I just think it's a good concept. I'm happy.
Thank you, Michelle. And Joycelyn, when we get to Lee Summit, I'm going to call upon you to make your own commentary about that one. So if staff wants to move to the Lee Summit project, I would appreciate it.
Sure. So we'll go, and one more slide. So this is the Lee Summit branch design concept, and we're a little bit further along on this one. In fact, it's going to be going out for bid and guaranteed maximum price very soon. So if we go to the next slide, this is the site plan. And so if you're looking at the picture there, sort of the light yellow part of the rectangle is the existing branch, and it gets sort of darker yellow or orangish yellow. And that's what we're going to be adding to the library. This also involves the construction of this library involves us flattening the parking lot a little bit. Right now, the parking lot does not adhere to ADA standards. And actually, many of you know Cody is our producer. He produces the board meeting for us. And one of the last times he was actually working at Lee Summit, there was an incident report because I think a book truck got away from him and started rolling away from him. It's because the parking lot's dangerous. The grade is too steep. And so we're looking to fix that as part of this project. The other thing that's important is that right now, Lee Summit branch is not visible. You can't see it. And we're looking to address visibility. So in the next few slides, I'm going to show you, again, similar sort of thing, design concept, and inspiration and a few pictures and all of that. So, one last thing about the parking lot is that we're actually sort of redesigning. So you can see the road that kind of goes through there, that gray road. And part of what we're doing here is redesigning that road to make it less of a speedway going through there, so people can easily walk through and not feel like there's danger in terms of traffic. So if we go to the next slide, this is some of the design concepts that we were looking at. And the main thing that I want to show you here is sort of that billboard you see on the left-hand side, the idea of sort of creating artificial height, and that helps to create a grander vision, or, better view shed, easier to see the item, easier to see the building, just by sort of extending an architectural structure. So if we go to the next slide, this is the concept for the outside of the building. And so what you're actually seeing is sort of, over there to the left is the sort of the existing building. And then you begin to see the metal panel start up. And right where that metal panel starts is where the door is right now. That's where the front door is today. And we continue to move over where all the glass is, and then eventually the glass is in the corner. That's where the new programming space is. And then when it ends, when the building ends, but still continues out, that's actually the drive lane for the drive-up window, as well as the extension that goes further out into, closer to, but not into the drive lane itself, which helps to create some visibility for the building. And so just to kind of show you what I'm talking about here, if we go to the next slide, you can really see this point. So you can probably see this much easier on your screen, but if you look at the upper picture, you can't see the library. The library is just not there. It's hidden between trees, and where it sort of opens up there, that's where the drive lane is. And of course, the building can't be where the drive is. But if you look down below, you can clearly see where it says library and where the logo is. And so it really does begin to increase the visibility. Now, of course, this is 50 highway. So, you can't really, make a left-hand turn and go to the library from here, but you can see the library from here, which is something you cannot do right now.
I know what you're looking for. You can see it.
Yeah, if you're trying to look for it, you can see it. What we're hoping to do here is that people who aren't trying to see it will see it organically. And we think that that's going to happen. A very similar study is what we'll be doing for North Oak to sort of prove that it will be more visible.
Oh, I think you're right on.
Once we move along. So, yeah. Next page, our next slide. This is the floor plan. And so with the floor plan, just in terms of orientation for the building, where those two sort of round things are outside of the building on the bottom of the picture, that's where the door is right now. And so we're moving the door a little bit to the right. And part of that is to center it in the building. But sort of reorganizing the entire space in the building. You can see on the left-hand side, there's the blue boxes. Those are the collaboration rooms for the new building. The two large blue boxes on the right-hand side toward the bottom is the programming space. We're building the programming space to accommodate a movable, operable partition wall. We'll see if we can afford it. But we're gonna build it so that we can put it in inexpensively if we're able to do that within the budget. The programming space itself is rather large. It's actually, if I remember correctly, and Jake may be on the call, it was close to the same size as our Woodneath room, as I recall. So it's a large in terms of square footage. But yeah, this is the floor plan. So it really does expand this building considerably. And so again, because this is much further along in concept, we actually have a few interior conceptual drawings to kind of let you know what this is going to feel like on the inside. So if we go to the next slide, these are a couple of slides illustrating that. So what we're doing here is we're kind of standing close to the service desk and looking out the front door on the left-hand side. And you can see the programming room off to the left, as well as all the glass in the magazine area where people might sit and read magazines. The picture on the right-hand side is actually standing against the back wall and looking toward the front door. And so what you're seeing here is sort of an edge of where the children's space is, but also where some of the tables are. But the thing that's really kind of interesting here is the ceiling. So what we've done is we've taken the acoustical ceiling down, gone to deck, and those images, those sort of little plastic clouds or those clouds that are in the ceiling are actually tanagrams. And so what will end up happening is that as you're walking along and looking up, you'll see tanagram shapes that actually make images. So like they'll make a fox or a dog or a cat or something like that. I mean, if you've ever done those triangle tanagram puzzles, that's what that is. And so there'll also be a sort of a concept in the children's area, like a wall where kids can make tanagram puzzles too. So it'll kind of connect all those things together. And so that's what it's looking like. And as I said, this is getting ready to go out for the the guaranteed maximum price, and should be ready to go. I just did get confirmation from Jake that yes, the capacity of the programming space is comparable to the programming space at Woodneath. So it's going to be a really, really big space, which is needed. They do a lot of large programs at Lee Summit. So I think that's the end of the slides that we have for the concepts. Back to you, Brent.
Joycelyn?
Yeah, thanks, Steve, for that wonderful presentation. Just to put this branch in context, the Lee Summit, this branch here was the first library branch in Lee Summit. It's number one in terms of, or it has historically been number one in terms of circulation. And it will be a third branch for Lee Summit. I think it was wise for the board to keep it where it is. And I commend staff for working through the logistical issues to address some concerns that we had, which was fixing that parking lot, and it needed to be fixed. And I think that the plans address that. It also addressed, I believe the plans also address the issue of not having enough space, being that we now have walking areas to use other parts of the parking lot that exists already. So I think that it's well suited for that. And I think that it also addressed the issues of meeting the needs of our number one branch. I think it's used a lot for tutoring. It's used a lot for homeschool programming and programming in general. It's used a lot by small business people or people who need faxing and copying services. And the computers are used very regularly, and it hosts quite a bit of book clubs. So I think it will continue, even though we now have a third branch in Lee Summit. I think it will continue to be very used. And I think that the building committee and our staff and Jake and Felix has done a good job in addressing pretty much all the issues that needed to be addressed at this time. So kudos, and I'm looking forward to sitting by that window and reading some books. Thank you.
So thank you, Joycelyn. This is Brent Schandelmeyer. I want to assure our fellow board members that the building committee discussions are pretty robust.
Mhm.
We talk through a lot of these things, and in many ways we rely upon the local knowledge and the local experience of people using these branches. And so I'm appreciative of the participation of the building committee on these things. So there's no decisions that need to be made relative to either one of these designs, but if you find there's something that's just totally objectionable or something that could be addressed, it would be important to hear that pretty quickly, because the designs will be finished up and sent out for bid. So I'm going to turn it back over to our staff to sort of provide an update about other projects. And then I think at the end, Steve's going to share a video from Colburn Road, which will be, I'm anxious to see.
Okay, so next slide is our capital update, capital plans update. So next slide after that is the placemat. Again, remember we redesigned this a little bit. So now it's basically showing what's in black is done, what's in green is underway, and what's in white is to do. The real important things to notice here, I would suggest, is that as you're looking at this, we're still setting at 84.5 million. We still have contingency. When you add in all of the allocations and everything, we are still in great shape. I mean, we've still got resources to build everything that we've said we're going to build. And we still have contingency, and we still have everything set aside that we need to finish things up. So, and that's important. I mean, I think all of us live in communities where frequently we'll see a situation where our school districts might pass a bond issue, and then they'll tell you, well, we built the buildings, now we don't have enough to operate them or something. That's not our situation. We are still in great shape all the way through so far. So if we go to the next slide, it's our traditional what's the status update as of February. So next slide, please. What we did last month, and by last month, we mean January, we opened the Parkville branch, which looks wonderful. If people haven't been in Parkville, please visit. And South Independence had substantial completion on January the 11th. If we go to the next slide. In February, we opened South Independence, and Grandview had substantial completion and started staging and getting all the materials in for Grandview. And so if we go to the next slide, we have listed on here Grandview branch opening on March the 22nd. And actually, that's not quite accurate. We are actually going to be opening Grandview on March the 19th. And so part of the, so there's some other interesting things that's happened with Grandview. We've actually had a couple of issues with the glass. We've had 2 shipments of interior glass that have been brought to us and been faulty that J.E. Dunn has not received. They won't allow them to be, that they won't allow them to be installed because they're not right. But what they haven't done is installed the temporary glass so that we can open on the 19th, and then we'll be replacing the glass with the right glass on times when the building is not open to the public. The important thing is there's not a safety issue at all with this. It's more of an acoustics issue, they said. So, but that will be happening. The other update is closing. So we'll be opening Grandview on the 19th. And we will close Blue Ridge just up the road on the 20th to start working on their update. So that's the big news that's going on there. And like Brent mentioned, I do have a video for Grandview, but let's hold that to the very, very end. Let's work the rest of the way through this through this part of the PowerPoint. So the next slide that I wanted to show you is this. It's the Woodneath Homestead update. So we did get an update recently that talked about how far along we are and what needs to be finished on the historic home. So as you can see, the entire list here that we've got trim for the plaster work through February the 26th. Wood floor installation is going on and right now in this first part of March. Plaster installation starting March 1st and will take about 4 weeks, almost all this month. Paint and trim for the doors and install the fire shutter in April. They'll refinish the wood floors and the final coats of all of that in April, painting the walls and ceilings in May. Carpet installation the middle of May and final cleanup and punch at the end of the month. So that'll mean we should be in, everything holds. We should be in good shape to start moving stuff in June. So the house is almost finished. We've seen light at the end of the tunnel. The last, I believe, 2 slides here before we back up and take a look at the video are some updates on Colburn Road. So you can see Colburn Road is moving along very quickly. I mean, they're starting to get flooring down. And carpet's the last thing you put down. And so we're seeing flooring done throughout. Also getting the branding in place. The sort of wooden thing that's there in the lower left-hand corner is the cafe. There is a vendor for that. Post Coffee in Lee Summit is actually the vendor. That's right, isn't it, Juan? Post Coffee?
Post Coffee, yes.
Yeah, that's right. And so as we can see, this moving along very quickly and certainly ready to be moving. So moving back in. So if we go to the next slide, it's Woodneath. And not quite as exciting, but pretty exciting if you're in the construction area, because what we're seeing here is that everything's sort of flattened out, that we're beginning to see the grade beams and the slab being poured, which is a very, very important part of getting things going. It's usually after this part that happens that things start moving really quickly. So things moving quickly for the Woodneath auditorium. And so last thing I'd like to do, if I may, is we've got a really short walkthrough of the Grandview branch, which is opening on the 19th. And some of you might have saw Matt Stewart was out there, and so that there was a sneak preview on Fox 4 this morning. So Cody, if you've got that, can you show that video of the walkthrough of Grandview?
Yes, just 1 second while I get it pulled up.
Right.
That's really nice.
So that just hit social media this afternoon. And I don't know what we're doing in terms of hits or anything, but it's really exciting. I mean, it looks like a brand new branch, and we're really excited to be able to share that with the public very soon. So I think, Brent, back to you. I mean, I think that's all that I had.
Just two other quick things for the new more board members. Jake Weimer is on the call here and you've not met him. Steve does a lot of the talking. I'm here to suggest Jake does a lot of the work. And it's really, really important because in some ways, prior to an earlier time, we didn't have somebody that was just devoted to our construction projects, and it really takes that. The last thing I would share with the board, the building committee has been looking at what site might be in Grain Valley. Because we're in a rented facility there and we're continuing to work through that. And probably maybe in the next 60 or 90 days, we may be able to come back with you with a report about a potential land acquisition there that will be necessary to site a new library. So I think that's it. I mean, I always look at these buildings and it's transformational and what's been done. Some of them are new constructions, but most of them have been remodels. And there's an aesthetic to them that I'm here to suggest our prior buildings did not have. And the aesthetic is more colors, bright, more windows, more open, configured in a way that's reflective of how it is that the buildings are being used. So our designer and our construction, they've been very great to work with, and they're not on our call, but at some point we have a lot to thank for them because they've been moving these projects along rather expeditiously and getting us good pricing. So that's my report, unless there's any question from or comment from any of the building committee members or other board members.
No, I don't have any. All right. Thank you, Brent. And since I'm not hearing any questions, comments, if you do think of something later, feel free to direct that back to Brent. Librarians report.
There's three things that I want to talk or bring your attention to today. The first thing is our COVID-19 dashboard. And I'm hoping that this is not going to be around forever, but this is something that I wanted to share with you. So if we go to the next slide, please. This is the dashboard. And the most interesting thing here is that if you look at the positive staff tests and where it says, the very last column, February, the next to the last column was very low. There were 5 positive staff tests with no closure, only 1 closure in the month of February. Go to March, there are no closures and no positive staff tests. If you go over to the total staff tested, again, looking at the very, very end, little tiny bar at the end, there were 4 total staff tested, and all 4 staff that were tested in March were negative. So we're definitely headed in the right direction so far in March. And this is actually really good news if you consider, that we did open for browsing and we've added some new services and we've done some new things. So I think this is very positive where we are. And I think also, as I've mentioned a couple of times, I've worked out at a couple of branches. Actually, I think I worked 3 or 4 days out at branches. Staff morale's pretty good. I mean, considering everything. And so I'm feeling good about where we are, and certainly we are positioned to start doing more, even more things soon. I'm not really able to say any more at this point because we haven't decided on anything more, but we are, we're in good shape. We are positioned to do more, which that's what I want to do, and positioned to go in the right direction as opposed to going backward. So all positive things. That's all I've got on COVID. I'd like to shift gears and ask Susan. Susan's on the call, Susan Ray. I'd have her talk briefly about the spelling bee. Some of you may not know this, but the Mid-Continent Public Library is essentially the primary sponsor of the spelling bee in Greater Kansas City. And so, Susan, would you like to talk a little bit about last weekend?
Sure. We've been holding the spelling bee for the last several years. Up until this year, we did this in conjunction with Kansas City Public Library, but over the last 2 or 3 years, they have slowly pulled out, and this year they pulled out completely. So we are it as far as the Scripps National Spelling Bee. If we don't sponsor this, there is no spelling bee champion to go to the nationals. Last weekend on Saturday, we've been holding this since MGC, since the community halls opened up. We've been holding it there. Last year, we had 60 students who did their little spell off. This year, we did it via Zoom. They did it a little bit differently this year because we couldn't have so many kids in the room. Typically, there is a semifinal round and then a finals round. Scripps did some other things in order to narrow down the number of kids in the final round, including a vocabulary test, which has not been done in the past. So Saturday, the judges and the pronouncer, our technical support all met at the community hall at Midwest Genealogy Center. We were all at least 8 feet apart. We all wore masks, so we were all appropriately socially distanced and following COVID procedures. There were 26 students in this competition. It took 14 rounds to get down to our one winner. The winner is now off to another round that is more nationwide. Scripps is only going to take a dozen kids to the actual finals this year in Orlando. So if our student makes it to that final round of 12, the library will then pay for him and one of his parents or guardians to actually go to the competition so that there's no barrier there. We have done that from the beginning.
Amazing.
It's a lot of fun. I have not judged the final round before. Usually I'm in the semifinal rounds. Nonetheless, the judges made me be the bad guy. And by that, I mean, if the student spells the word wrong, you have to ring a bell. Doing it via Zoom wasn't near as heartbreaking for me because as soon as the students figured out they spelled the word wrong, they turned their video off. When you do that in person, you get tears and all kinds of things, which I'm sure there were tears. I just didn't have to see them. The first year I did that, I had to hit the bell and just not look at the student. Because it's some of them, especially the younger ones who have just, it's their first or second time in the spelling bee, really do take it personally. You can usually tell the students catch themselves when they spell the word wrong. And they pause, but they can't go back and start over. It went really well. It took about 4 hours, and we will continue to do this as long as we can.
Thank you, Susan. Last part of the librarian's report, I've asked Jim Staley to put together a presentation. If you remember last month, we were talking about opening for browsing, and I think several of you had some ideas and some suggestions for some things we could do, make sure we got the word out. And we took many of those suggestions and did many of those things. But I asked Jim to put together a full presentation so you could see all the things we did to increase visibility for this new level of service and what the outcome was. So Jim, I believe you're on the line, and floor is yours.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Yeah, like Steve said, since we had a robust discussion about this, I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you kind of what our department would do in general in a situation like this. I know Steve, I think, has asked us maybe later in the year to come back and do a more full presentation on how our department works and some of the things that we do, but this one's specifically around the communication around browsing services. So if somebody could hit the next slide. I wanted to start by showing you a few of the folks, because so many new people are here, wanted to show you a few people who would be working on a project like this. The first person there is our community relations specialist, Emily Brown. She does all the PR work. She was up at 5 a.m. this morning meeting Matt Stewart for the Fox 4 interview, along with Kira, who actually did the interview. Next to her is Tommy Harden. Tommy is our online marketing coordinator, which means he manages social media, among some various other things, but social media is a big piece of it. The marketing content coordinator, Jody Olson-Kidney. Jody actually came to us and started with us in May of last year. So nobody on our team has ever actually worked in the office together with Jody before, but she has hit the ground running. Anyway, she handles the email program. You all know Katina, or I should say most of you know Katina. Katina is part of our team. The data is a big part of how we make decisions and what we do. So we desperately need her input on things. Mary is our marketing manager. She puts together a lot of the outside advertising pieces, as well as some of the messaging, and supervises some of the members of the team. And then, of course, me. Next slide, please. So in a case like this, we really want to get the word out quickly. We've got various tools at our disposal. And so I'm going to talk through kind of 4 major categories here: email, social media, public relations, and then our advertising and partnerships are kind of 2 sides of a similar coin. So next slide, please. Start with email. So we have an email system called Savannah. We have some longtime partners, a library company called Orange Boy, who a lot of, when you see a lot of Katina's data, it comes from our partners at Orange Boy. But sitting on top of all that data is our email system. We have 201,000 customers who have given us email addresses. You notice there's a little caveat there that says those are email users who have used their card in the last 3 years. If somebody hasn't used their card in the last 3 years, we don't tend to mail them in the general in general emails. We might go find a specific email for them on occasion. Anyway, so those of you who know email marketing know that open rates on emails are generally pretty low. Our welcome back email was opened by 50% of the people who received it, which is a huge response. So we were able to reach a little over 100,000 of our customers just via our welcome back email. We supplemented that with our e-newsletter. I'm sure most of you get the e-newsletter at the beginning of every month. 15% is still a good open rate. It pales in comparison, obviously, to 50, but still a good open rate. So, we supplemented another almost 31,000 views on Express service there. Next slide, please. Okay, social media is the next piece. I know we had a little conversation about social media at the last board meeting. So we put together multiple unique posts specifically about the return of browsing. Through those posts, one of the posts was just sort of the welcome back message. One was a video. I should say some of those folks that you saw at the beginning of this presentation put those videos together. So they did one about being back for browsing. They also did the Grandview walkthrough one. Mary is actually our resident video editor amongst her other duties, which is actually, to me, is totally amazing that she can do that given everything else she has going on. So combined Facebook reach, you can see, I mean, you all can see the numbers there, a little over 22,000. We do Twitter and Instagram. So our total social media reach, that number is not correct at the bottom of that. I can do that math in my head, and that is not 31,400. So it's actually it's probably 41,400. So so that's our social media program. Next slide, please. Okay, now I thought it was worth sharing some of this. These are some of the reactions we got when we posted on social. Lots of people posting pictures of themselves in the stacks. They were so excited, posting pictures of their kids. We heard stories, lots of people doing excitement gifts. So this is one of the reasons why social media is important, because we get to interact with our customers and they really love to interact back with us. Next slide, please. PR, we got a press release out, as we always do, immediately, and did a lot of follow-up reaching out. So KMBC 9 and Fox 4 picked up the messaging, and then almost all of our local newspapers then picked it up as well. And when you add all of that together, our total press reach was about 270,000 people. So that's a big piece for us as well. Steve kind of mentioned it earlier. We had Fox 4 back out this morning, touring Grandview. They did spots at I think 6, 8, and noon. And Fox 4 in particular is a really great partner for us. They have a general interest in libraries, and Matt Stewart in particular has a general interest in libraries. All right, next slide, please. Okay, and we do some paid advertising as well. So here are what you see on the left as you're looking at it is a paid Facebook post, which is not really a boosted post. This is something, it's a different type of thing that we do. And then on the right, what you see is an online ad that particular one was probably clipped out of one of our partners like KC Parent, or maybe even one of the radio stations. So through that, we were able to do about 275,000 more impressions. That's sets of eyeballs looking at. All right, next slide, please. We also did, we've got a long-term partnership with Cumulus Radio. One of the reasons we like Cumulus is because they have a whole slate of channels that hit a lot of very different demographics. And so in this case, we did information sponsorships. Information sponsorships are, the news, the weather, traffic, that's what they call them now. That's not what they used to call them, but they sell them as information sponsorships. So so basically it comes through and says, traffic's brought to you by Mid-Continent Public Library, who'd like you to know that browsing is back. So those are radio spots. Next slide, please. And then our partner posts, these are a couple of examples of our partners. So you can see there's KC Parent and there's iFamily KC. They're basically picking up our posts and sharing them with their networks. And that's part of the relationship, that we have. Sometimes because we have paid relationships with them, and sometimes because, we're sharing something that their audience would be interested in anyway. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so when you total all that up together, the eyeballs that saw MCPL's message were a little over 708,000. That was, we finished this up last Friday, so there's probably been a few more since then. But this is sort of in general, this is the way we go about making sure people see our library messages when something happens. So I think that's the last slide.
Mhm.
Oh,
Oh, no,
no.
one more.
No, I'm sorry. The most important part. So what did it do? Okay, there's a slide here. The red line on the bottom of your graph there is our daily attendance. The week. It's a little confusing here because it's not the week before browsing in, it is the week before that, because the week before browsing we had a couple of closed days, so it wasn't a good comparison. So anyway, it's 2 weeks before browsing versus once browsing was back in, and we saw an 85% increase since resuming browsing services. And now that's continuing to increase now, but now people are coming back and they know about it. So what was important was that we got that word to people quickly so they could start coming back immediately upon knowing that the library was open. All right. With that is the last slide. Any questions, comments, suggestions?
I just want to say it's very impressive. Very impressive. To be that proactive and to see the results is you guys should be complimented. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say that echo the same thoughts. Very impressive. Way to go, Jim, and your whole team. It's awesome. It's really impressive. Good job.
Thank you. I'll be sure they hear that.
All right. Thank you, Jim. You guys always do a great job.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's all the librarian report, yeah.
Okay.
I asked Steve a question that, or Jim, Kansas City, Missouri passed some new stuff, Melissa Robinson, on all the tax increment stuff. What's our reaction to what they passed?
Actually, I've been working diligently with the City of Independence on a couple of things. Jim, are you tracking that a little closer than I am?
Yeah, I mean, it is generally favorable to us, Steve. We are in the boat of several of the taxing jurisdictions where we started out with a much stronger resolution that was on the table via Councilwoman Robinson. It through its various versions got watered down considerably, which probably wasn't a surprise. I think sort of in our ongoing quest, the concern here, well, if the resolution in and of itself is a good thing. The concern would be long-term whether or not this creates a feeling that everything is now solved, because it was headed towards a direction where it would seem more like it was solved. And then as it got watered down, it is more so now a slight improvement. So slight improvements are good, but we're going to keep working. We regularly meet with the other taxing jurisdictions to discuss strategy on how to keep getting the best deals possible for all of our constituents. And by all of our constituents, I mean each one of the taxing jurisdictions constituents. And yeah, I think we still have some work to do. And that we are looking at a few things coming forward, and I think ultimately there might be some stuff we'd be bringing to the finance committee relatively soon on some monitoring and how we can do monitoring better. So does that answer your question, Steve?
Yeah, my take on it was that it wasn't what we hoped for in general, but it was progress, and those of us who follow the legislative process know that progress is sometimes a fleeting kind of subject matter, but we are going in the right direction. We do, I think, more so now than we've had in a long time, have the attention of a lot of people that libraries and schools are being shortchanged, and I think I think we've raised our visibility, and I think it was a step in the right direction. And I think you're right, Jim. We just got to stay with it. We're not over. It's not a final solution, but it is a step in the right direction. So thank you for all your good work on that regard also.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we'll move on to new business, setting the non-binding levy.
Yeah, I'll be happy to tee this up for everyone.
Yep.
So the issue here is that tax jurisdictions are required to set a non-binding levy rate as outlined in statute. That's section 137.243 and applied in statute 137.180. The non-binding rate is used to create property tax estimates for residents of counties with a charter form of government, i.e. Jackson County in our case. Since MCPL includes parts of Jackson County, the library is obligated to adhere to this provision for the entire district. Failure to set the non-binding levy will result in a 20% reduction in taxes collected. This process is well ahead of the necessary steps in creating the annual budget and is not used as part of the budgeting process, although required by law. MCPL typically calculates the actual levy and revenue amounts when the library receives the county assessed valuation reports later in the year and certifies the actual levy rate once that amount is authorized by the state auditor, typically in September, as Quan mentioned earlier in the meeting. This action's value, it's primarily a ministerial value, but the action is also stewardship that the library believes in public and private dollars entrusted to us must be effectively and efficiently to improve the community. So staff's recommendation is that that the board set the non-binding levy rate at the voted ceiling of 40 cents per $100 of assessed valuation.
All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
It's rolling.
Okay, and can I get a second?
Second, Michael.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, this is Yummy. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that just sounds like very, very high. Can you explain that a little bit?
The 40 cents per 100?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the voted amount that the taxpayers and the voters authorized us to levy. And so that is our voted ceiling, number one. Number two, if we set it lower than that amount and guess wrong, then we potentially have a problem and wouldn't be able to come back and do it otherwise. So be able to collect the full calculated amount is what I mean. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is well above, it's prescriptive. We have never actually taxed at 40 cents per 100, but it's what we typically do and it's what we're authorized to do.
What do we tax?
So if I'm remembering correctly, so the other counties, Platte and Clay, were at about 36 cents.
What is our current, for all four digits?
36.96.
36.96 is what our calculated rate is.
Okay, thank you.
And we won't know our calculated rate until the assessed valuation finishes in September.
This is Brent Schoenemer. I want to point out is that the rate is the same for all counties. We're a consolidated library district, so there's not a different rate for Jackson County, Platte County, or Clay County. It's the same across the whole library district.
Okay, yeah, that's what didn't make sense to me. Okay, so I understand a little better now. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. So we'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Is there anyone abstaining? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. All right. Thank you, everybody. Now moving on to announcements.
Just looking at your list, so please be sure to consult your list of announcements. There are going to be, we've got committee meetings scheduled or are listed on the announcements page. And very often the committee meetings are canceled. As I mentioned earlier, as we're getting into the budget period, it's not as likely that they will be canceled. They probably will be held. So we'll keep you posted and make sure that you get all the information that you need for the upcoming committee meetings. But I don't think I have any other announcements. Do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Trustees' comments. Does anyone have any comments? Okay, well, I'm going to take that as a no. I will take a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second is Joyce.
All right, all those in favor?